Once upon a time, Mazda built a fire-breathing torque monster that would rip the steering wheel right from your hands if you gave it the beans going around a corner. Of course, that vehicle was the famous, or infamous, Mazda Speed 3. Oh my gosh, this car is so much fun to drive in the twisties. It's got go-kart-like handling. It goes exactly where you point it. Hitting an apex of a turn is so easy. And now behind me is the brand new Mazda3 2.5 liter turbo. And the question that Tommy and I are going to answer in this video is very simple. Does that vehicle replace the iconic Mazda Speed 3? Here's a hint. It's all-wheel drive.
Now, the iconic Mazda Speed 3 made 263 horsepower and 280 pound-feet of torque. Let's see what this one has underneath the hood. So for 2021, the Mazda 3 2.5 turbo makes 250 horsepower, so less horsepower than the old Mazda Speed 3, but way more torque. 320 pound-feet of torque out of a 4-cylinder Skyactiv G turbo. Now, they use this engine in a variety of Mazda products, but it has finally come to the Mazda 3 in both hatchback and sedan form. So less power than the old Mazda Speed 3, but 40 pound-feet more torque.
Now, the old Mazda Speed 3 came from a time when hot hatches ruled the roads. You know, cars like the Subaru WRX, STI maybe, the Ford Focus ST, the Golf R. These were all fire-breathing hot hatches. And the question is this new vehicle as, well, boyhood racy as the old one? So let's kind of go over some of the things that are similar and some that are different. So, big front spoiler, check. Rear spoiler, check. Hood scoop, not check. And perhaps the most important thing of all is the old vehicle had a manual transmission. This one only comes in a 6-speed automatic, which is not grand for enthusiasts like me. However, because of all that torque steer, this new one now is all-wheel drive, which is good, especially if you live in a place like Colorado where it does snow occasionally.
I would argue that the age of the hot hatch is still very much alive and much better than it was way back in the 2010s up to 2013 with the old Mazda Speed 3, because now we have vehicles like the Civic Type R and the Veloster N, and oh, by the way, this vehicle makes more torque than both of those.
What makes a hot hatch so cool, of course, is that it can also be practical. You can put your family in the vehicle and then put your stuff or your, well, perhaps dog in the back. Unfortunately, this new Mazda 3 doesn't have a lot of room back here. And that's because it's got this sexy, flowing slope roofline. So if you're thinking about replacing your CX-5 with this as a family hauler, I'd think again. Tommy, how's the back seat?
Well, you know, the back seats are certainly a little tight. I might say very tight. Luckily, the front seats are scalloped, so I have some space for my legs. This is my driving position at 6'1", but not a lot of leg room, not a lot of headroom, not a lot of shoulder room either. So if you're thicker than a string bean like me, you certainly aren't going to be getting a 3 abreast seating back here. But, you know, what's more important is how is the front seat and what's the interior like when you're driving?
All right, let's face it, back seats are for passengers. If you're a serious driver, it's all about the front seat. This is, of course, where all the important stuff happens, and actually it's a very pleasant place to be. Unlike the back seat, I have enough leg room, I have enough hip room, I have enough shoulder room, I have enough headroom. I also have just a very pleasant interior because everything is kind of laid out and driver centric. Let me have Tommy go into the details.
The key in the Mazda 3 2.5 turbo does not look very different from any other Mazda key. It does not look really all that special for a very important car in the Mazda lineup, but you know, it is pretty high quality, and you have buttons along the side to lock and unlock. And then to start the vehicle, put on the brake, push the start button. The gauges in the Mazda 3 Turbo are pretty cool looking. I actually love the mix of digital and analog. So on the left here, we have a tachometer. You can see it's an analog gauge. In the middle, we have our speed and our general information on the vehicle. And then on the right, we have engine temperature and fuel. The steering wheel in the Mazda 3 Turbo is super high quality. I love the leather and I like the overall design. Very small airbag here in the middle, and then buttons along both sides. On the left, we've got our audio controls. On the right, we have cruise control, and then also some of our safety systems, because the Mazda comes standard with a whole suite of safety systems to keep you out of trouble. The transmission shifter for the 6-speed automatic is also leather wrapped. Pull the little button, and then you can pull it back into drive, reverse, neutral, and park. There's also a manual mode, and you can use the shifter itself to go up and down gears, or you can use these little plastic paddles on the back of the steering wheel. And it's probably one of the areas of the interior I don't like so much, because these feel a little bit cheap, especially for a performance-oriented vehicle. One kind of interesting touch on the inside of the Mazda 3 are these vents here on the passenger. Now you actually have two, one here on the left and one over here on the right, and then in the middle it looks like there should be a long continuous vent, but this is actually a fake vent. You only have the left and the right vent that blow air out toward the passenger's face. Here in the middle of the Mazda, we have the infotainment screen. It looks like it should be a touchscreen, and it's not too long of a reach if I needed to touch it, but unfortunately it doesn't operate as a touchscreen. It operates with this rotary dial down here in the middle of the vehicle. I'm going to say that this system is very tricky to use, although Mazda will tell you that once you learn it, it takes a week or so to learn. It's actually highly intuitive. I'm still not so sure. I think it's just a little bit clunky in the way you navigate the various menus. For example, if I go into entertainment here and I want to now, just tune the radio, I have to push down into menu, then I have to go into channel list, and then I can go up and down on the various channels here in XM, for example, and then I can save them as a favorite, so then I can simply go into my audio setting and then cycle my favorites. It's a little tricky to use. I'd much prefer a volume knob and a tune knob. Luckily there is a volume knob located down here, but funny enough, it's over on the right by the passenger. The Mazda 3 Turbo does have a sport mode. Push it up to engage. It displays sport here in the middle of the gauge cluster. But that's it. There's no other driving modes inside this vehicle. There is a parking brake, but it's an electronic parking brake, so you're not going to be doing mad skids with a standard handbrake. One really nice feature in this 2021 Mazda 3 Turbo is the 360-degree camera, so I can see tons of different views around the vehicle. I can also see the overhead view just so I know what's around me when I'm navigating, or I can see these hikers, which are about to come walking into the front-facing camera there. Pretty cool. There is a prominent USB located right here on the center of the dash, but there are more. They're just a little bit hidden. So the center console, I can slide back and then actually pivot forward. There's another USB right there that you can see, and a fairly small center cubby here, but I do have this little divider so I can make it more useful for storing smaller items, but it doesn't go very deep.
Behold the grille of the Mazda 3. It's almost as if all the manufacturers got together and decided that to prove that there is no electricity powering this vehicle, we're going to give it the biggest, the most enormous, the absolutely largest possible grille opening to the radiator possible, so that there could be no doubt that this vehicle is not electrified in any way, form, or shape.
To further prove that this Mazda 3 is a little bit special, there are a couple of other indications that this is a turbo. First of all, Skyactiv G turbo badging on the rear. You also have this big spoiler up top and slightly larger exhaust than the standard Mazda 3. And if you want to, make it a little bit cooler, there are a number of accessories as well, including a set of 18-inch BBS wheels. But those 18-inch BBS wheels are $990 per wheel, so almost $4,000 in wheels if you go that route, which seemed a little bit crazy to me.
Did you know that TFL were a little bit different? We don't spend the entire review pointing at stuff. We actually take off-roaders off-road. We actually tow with trucks and give you hard numbers and hard statistics so that you can make the buying decision. You know what? In this video, we are kind of just pointing at things. But that's because driving impressions on this Mazda are embargoed until later this month. So we really can't stick a Solar DL and show you how quick it is from 0 to 60. But did you know that we always try to be first? And that's why we're making this video? That's right, TFL, independent and honest reviews.
The 2021 Mazda 3 2.5 Turbo starts at $29,900 in sedan form and $30,900 in hatchback form. It's worth noting that all the turbo models come standard with all-wheel drive and an automatic transmission. Now granted, the turbo and the non-turbo Mazda 3s look pretty similar, but the easiest way to tell them apart is by this front end here. On the turbos, it's this gloss black. I like this little divider here too. That's a nice little hint. And it's just lower than the standard Mazda 3. And speaking of the Mazda 3 Turbo, what does it compete with? Well, it's a little bit unusual. Maybe something like a Golf GTI or a Veloster N or maybe a Civic Type R are the closest competitors, but this car has all-wheel drive. Those cars don't. So maybe the Subaru WRX, but you can't get the WRX in a hatchback, so maybe the Focus RS, oh, that died. So maybe the Golf R, oh, that's also not in production right now. I don't know. Let me leave you a comment in the section below. What do you think the Mazda 3 Turbo competes with?
I started this review by asking a simple question. Is this the spiritual, heck, the real successor to the Mazda Speed 3? What do you think, Tommy?
Well, according to Mazda, I don't think they want you to think it is.
Really?
Because, yeah, it's not called a Speed 3. They very well could have called it that. And I have a sneaking suspicion there may be a true speed version coming soon.
So there's a hotter, hot hatch Mazda 2.5 Turbo coming, hopefully called the Mazda Speed 3.
Well, it's not official, but that's my opinion. I think there might be.
And if you're wondering how this drives and goes around corners, come back later this month when we'll let you know with a complete driving review. As always, this is Roman.
Yep, and Tommy. Check out TFLcar.com for what?
For more news, views, and of course, I'm going to go with independent and honest reviews. See you guys next time. Ciao. Here's a little behind the scenes story. Last time I actually drove the Mazda Speed 3 was in a blinding snowstorm. I had just flown home from Italy where I had been driving the new Lamborghini Gallardo at the time. All right, it wasn't that new, but it was new to me, at triple digit speeds. And I got behind the wheel of the Mazda Speed 3 and I drove it home from the airport like Sebastian Loeb. I was whipping that thing around corners. I thought to myself, Roman, you have become such a good driver having gotten behind the wheel of that Lamborghini. And then in the middle of the night, I woke up with the stark realization, did that Mazda Speed 3 have snow tires? I actually walked down in front of the house in the snowstorm and sure enough, it had snow tires. So it wasn't me, but it was the car and the snow tires. Yeah, snow tires are that good in a snowstorm that even a Mazda Speed 3 with as much torque steer as any other car I've ever driven can be a pussycat in a snowstorm.